have armed police officers who are protecting their clients, who are encouraging the riots and corruption in our country has reached a level where it is an existential threat to our country's future. I agree with the member from Magarini. We have had challenges with corruption. Recruitment. We've had so many complaints from members of the public across the country that some of our officers ask for bribes. And that's not just for the Kenya Prison Service. It's for many of the other services and generally the public sector. And corruption in our country has reached a level where it is an existential threat to our country's future. Every day, Chair, I get thousands and millions of complaints from members of the public who claim that they are public officers, whether in the police service or other public agencies, who are asking them for bribes. And outside the threat of terror and banditry and other sophisticated national security threats we are dealing with, we are slowly reassessing our anti-corruption strategy. I want to promise this committee that we will stop and completely eradicate corruption from the agencies that are in this ministry. It's a bit difficult, it's entrenched, but we have a resolve. We've already done some modest effort at immigration. We are at 10%. We are at 10%, 90% to go. So the problem is bigger than we actually realize. So I accept, likewise, and this is not unique for the Kenya prisons, we have a corruption problem as a country. And the energy that we have invested to fight the threat of terror and other serious national security threats is the energy that the government, as government, we must put to fight corruption. It will cripple Kenya. Corruption will kill Kenya. The levels of corruption have reached very alarming levels. So I think we'll sit with the Commissioner General of Prisons and the PS, and we will see what we need to do. We encourage members of the public to give us information. And we will have to send officers home. We'll have to send officers to prison. And it's a paradox. A person, an officer of prisons being sent to prison.
The best.
So, member for Magarini, I am with you 100%. And it's not a Magarini problem, it's across the country. Across the country. Chair, there is the issue of our very not so good performance in terms of the disability inclusivity agenda. I agree. The only remark I'll make there is that the bulk of our staff and officer workforce, the kind of work that, first of all, the kind of training and the kind of duties that they do may hamper our desire to reach the threshold because of the unique assignment involved. And we are not saying that persons with disability cannot be accommodated, because in the State Department for Correctional Services, we have areas like probation and aftercare services, which is one area we can really go a long way in having more people who would not ordinarily be suitable to be, prison warders and prison officers. we will improve, and I would love to sit down and work out a process. The same applies to the gender issue, and I've seen the two members almost disagreed. Although they didn't disagree, Chair, they didn't disagree on the question of ensuring that we meet the we meet the requirements of the law. I think this also can be achieved, and I want to promise the imbalance, as was ably also suggested by the member for Kasipul, that that is asking how do we get there? And I think, like, for gender, it's not impossible. And I believe in the next two recruitments, we can commit to the country. In the next two recruitments, we can fulfill the demands of the law on gender. On the disability 5%, I will need to do a more scientific assessment and give a time frame later, but we'll still work out a strategy. I say there is no excuse for not meeting the requirements of the law. From officers, we have 592, and these are basically specialized officers, technicians. Now we have a hospital, we are going to have even doctors. We have all manner of, staff. Yes, we even have clergy, imams and chaplains, and these are the total is about 592, and we apply the same measure of diversity in the process, including religious diversity when it comes to religious staff. The other question which was asked is I think on the 5 major communities, I've already said that we have to address that, but match it to the proportionate population composition of the communities. Other than that, yeah, the Honorable Ngoyoyo asked about the sub-counties, where if we are using the sub-counties as centers of recruitment, some constituencies have more sub-counties than others. It is true. First and foremost, we are working on an equitable and science-based formula for sub-counties, and as I said before, maybe before another committee, because sub-counties are mainly for national government administration, we are setting the parameters, including insecurity, the levels of insecurity and so forth, and population as the criteria. But even when we retain the sub-counties as recruitment centers, even when some constituencies have more sub-counties than others, we'll still do the math in terms of how many officers we recruit per sub-county to ensure that no area is disadvantaged by either having few or even more sub-counties than the other. We try our best to do that. And then I've talked about corruption. We need to relook at our policy of recruitment, and that some of the things that we insist on can be relooked at. I have committed before the next recruitment to sit with the service commanders to discipline the agencies within the ministry to see what we can develop as adjustments to the modern trends, including the CBC issue that the member for Kajiado North has raised, but also the issues that were raised by the member for Nyeri Town. However, I want to put a caveat that some of these requirements are medical requirements. And we cannot do much about medical requirements because you don't want to recruit someone who will succumb because of the medical related issues. Other than that, I agree with you to review. Number two, when will be the next recruitment? We are hoping we'll be able to recruit early next year. Early next year.
Okay.
Early next year. We are late this year, so early next year for both the police and the prisons. Number three, the member for Kasipul has asked about equal opportunities in administrative structures. I agree fully. There must be equity and equal opportunities to all the parts of Kenya when it comes to the creation of administrative units. The policy position of this administration is that all administrative units that had been already gazetted at all levels, sub-county, because we can't create new counties, only you can create new counties and the referendum, and the people of Kenya in a referendum. But sub-counties, divisions, locations, and sub-locations, all of them will be operationalized. That is the policy position. However, it is not possible to operationalize all of them at the same time because of budgets. So there is budget issues. That's number one. Number two, there are units, and I know this cuts across all the regions of Kenya. There are units where we may have the budget for the officers, the AIEs, for the DCCs, for the ACCs, but there is no office. So we have to look for office between the Ministry of Interior and CDF. Sometimes we partner with members of parliament. So that's what explains why, for example, if a certain area already there is an existing office, we would operationalize that because then it's easier to look for the AIE to post the officer than to build an office and also the AIE at the same time, same financial year. The other thing we are factoring in is insecurity, and areas that are prone with insecurity, we are giving them priority first, and so on and so on. But no region of Kenya will be left out, and all the units that have already been gazetted will be operationalized under this administration. I have done the first financial year. In the next 2 financial years, there will be no single units that were gazetted that will not be operational. And then we'll also look at perhaps gazetting new ones after we have dealt with the historical backlog. Because what we had, Chair, is a political problem. Every election year, 2013, 2017, 2022, the political pressure was put on government to perhaps pronounce so many administrative units. But now the actual work of implementing has been quite laborious. The commitment I want to give as the minister responsible is that we'll operationalize all of them without exception. Next is on the public participation in recruitment. I have heard what the member is saying, except that these recruitments, a member from Mwingi North, and I've been in his constituency like 3-4 times, not because of the things he said at the beginning, but because of the insecurity in that, especially Mwingi North there, where there have been issues there. That's what has been taking me there, and the other parts have been. So we would like to depoliticize recruitment. So we'll be reluctant to allow members of parliament. And in fact, it's not in your interest to be there, because you have all those kids are your constituents. And once your hand is seen directly that you are there and perhaps a certain kid has been taken, another one has not been taken, it just creates problems for you. So, but I hear you, there is need for greater transparency in the exercise. And I agree we have work to do there. And therefore, in the next recruitment, we'll see what else we can do to have greater public participation and transparency in the exercise, including completely making it impossible for officers to ask for bribes in exchange for positions in the disciplined services. Then, towards the end, I am also reminded that I am not very available, and it is true, Chair, and I admit I will try and improve. But it has been, I've been on a roller coaster for 1 year. I, sometimes sleeping for an hour, for 45 minutes, and we are all human. But I still hear you that for me to succeed, I need the support and consultations with the leaders who are elected by the people. So I'll improve on that in the new, as I start my second year in office, I'll be more accessible and I'll sort out the phone problems, the engineers. Then the issue of security, we do not politicize security. It is true, we withdrew security bodyguards from some politicians, and the reason we did that is because when we had violent riots in some parts of the country, sometimes early this year, we realized that it is a security problem when you have armed police officers who are protecting their clients, who are encouraging riots which the police have to contend with, and these are people serving in the same agency. Again, you can create a very ugly situation. So we say that all those who are participating in their freedoms of picketing should do so as required by Article 37 of the Constitution, peacefully or peaceably and unarmed.
More radio, 88.2 FM. We